the first thing is everybody had a chance to review the meeting notes, and if so, can we go ahead and approve them? Somebody make a motion to approve them?
I'll make a motion that we approve the meeting notes as presented.
I will
Okay.
second that.
Wonderful. Everybody in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Passed.
Thank you. Policy direction. I think I'll put Mark Rasicot on the spot and have him walk us through the couple items that MAPC needs direction on. If that works for you, Mark.
Okay. So I don't know, Maren, does everybody have the questions that I distributed back on February 4th?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
great. So the big questions really relate to sub-district boundaries and the types of units that you are anticipating for each of those sub-districts, because we need that information in order to do the mapping and the application to DHCD. So I know, Maren, you distributed a map. If you wanted to bring that up on screen and talk with folks about that, because there's the 245 Foster Street parcel, and then there are separate issues on the 291 the 191 Foster Street parcel, because that has the existing nursing home on it.
Correct. Okay. It'll take me a moment to get to that, but I had sent around the draft map. Just wondering if there was any quick feedback from committee members on that.
Actually, can I ask a more general question first?
Absolutely.
I mean, there's obviously a lot of reasons to do the sub-district. Is there any drawback? Is it more bureaucracy? Is it less likely to be approved? What's the trade-off, I guess?
Joe, you want to handle that one since you did one with sub-districts in another municipality?
Yeah, so one of the things is that, so when we were talking about developing the 40R in the first place, we were talking about how there's different density types for housing. When DHCD reviews the 40R bylaw, it's also looking to see what is the developable area that's part of the application, as well as the potential number of units that could be developed. If we're contemplating a variety of housing types, then we sort of, in order to make sure that DHCD recognizes them, we need to sort of almost carve them off into areas so that, and I'm just going to show you this from in Grafton, we had created subzones that then identified the uses, the size, so that we could treat them a little differently. We could identify different height restrictions, different potential uses, different dimensional standards to try to make each of them their own. In this case, we had them across the street, so it makes it a little easier than for us right now. But the philosophy is the same, where we have been talking about the side closer to 495, that would be the high residential. We want to have some other attached townhouse and maybe some single family that gets closer to life care. So a map that Martin had sort of just sketched out sort of created some of these sub areas. And by creating these subzones, some of the other challenges that we've been dealing with as far as the structure of the bylaw can be resolved by relying on creating those subzones.
Right, and I would simply concur that, as Joe said, some of the issues such as, large multifamily housing being potentially adjacent to existing residential can be averted by having that in a sub-district that's further away. So that's why I see the advantages. I'm not aware of any disadvantages to having the sub-zones.
So, and one other thing is that we can still allow for variability. We could allow for changes in that district line to occur, provided, say, the overall developable area remains the same. So you cut from this side, but you give back on this side to make some allowances. The worst case situation, we have a fall town meeting and we need to make different adjustments if the developer says, you know what, I really need more of this type. And we can't sort of squeeze that line back and forth to sort of offset it. That sometimes happens. I had to go back with DHCD and town meeting to get a minor adjustment for our bylaw. But when you have a developer that is playing ball and working with you, fall town meeting compared to annual town meeting isn't that long away.
So a quick follow-up. I assume we could specify townhouses or single family, for example, but we would need to adhere to some sort of count of units and density within that sub-district or in the development as a whole. Is that correct?
So because there are 3 different density types, high, medium, and low, the single family is the low at 8 units per acre, medium, like townhouse, attached housing at 12. You could allow for it all within the low, but you'd only be credited, say, for the low. So at least it's been my observation as far as how it's worked in others. If all of a sudden you allowed for a higher, dense, a more dense housing type, the way that 40R is really identifying those 3 development types for housing pretty much locks you into some sort.
Okay. So it's like a best practices, one type per sub-district.
Yeah, and that's where it all is coming down to the recognition as far as the total number of developable units that
Right.
DHCD recognize.
Okay, thank you.
So you could, for instance, within the 12 unit per acre townhome area as designated on Marin's map, you could say, look, we want to do 12 units per acre within this district in either townhome or cottage developments. And that should be okay for you to say that, because if I don't think DHCD would complain if you had single family at a higher density than their minimum, which would be 8 per acre. So if you went and said you could do either townhomes or single family at 12 units per acre, they should be fine with that.
Sure.
Okay.
So Mike, your issue is really the solid yellow that buffers between the long property and that is part of the nursing home. Is that where?
Well, there's a couple of issues, Mark. The first issue is that we need to develop a map, and if you're happy with Marin's approximate boundaries as shown on here, then that's what we could go with for the 245 Foster Street, with the pink area being the I'm sorry, I guess that's a salmon color. There were only 8 crayons in my Crayola box when I was growing up, so I'm not good with colors. So the salmon color being the mixed use, and the yellow crosshatch being the high density multifamily, and the blue crosshatch being the 12 unit per acre, the medium density, as either single family or townhome. If those are okay, we'll go with those. Then there is the question of the 191 Foster Street property, which, as you noted, is the solid yellow. That's only part of the Foster Street, the 191 Foster Street property, though. The question is whether or not you want the entire 191 Foster Street property in the 40R district. That would include the nursing home facility itself. If you were to put the entire property within the 40R district, the existing nursing home would be what's called substantially developed land, and it would be taken out of the calculations for the future density bonus payments. But that area could still be redeveloped at a 40R density if, for instance, in 15 years, the nursing home is no longer in business for whatever reason, and you had designated that area as a townhome area, it could be redeveloped for townhomes at the appropriate density. And you would still get the density bonus payments at that time for those units because they were included in the 40R district. But the question is, what are the sub-districts that you would like to see on the 191 Foster Street property? I had been told, and I believe that the PowerPoint that was shown at the joint meeting of the planning board and select board showed part of the 191 Foster Street property as townhome density, the 12 units per acre, and part of it as multifamily. But we would need something from you designating that, which areas you want in which zone.
And I think we had talked about having that almost be a transitional area, like small cottages for seniors, and so.
Well, the issue is you can't say for seniors
Oh, right, but
because you can't
Right.
can't designate it in the zoning. An individual developer can come in later and say, "Hey, I
Right.
want to do a development for seniors."
Right.
Right, and we do have zoning in place, the senior residential development bylaw, that if somebody did want to come in and do a assisted living or senior, another senior development, they could do that without using the overlay district.
Right.
So there is a fairly wide range of, the possible developments we could get there.
It seems that like doing things in conjunction with Life Care Center could get really thorny really quickly. Especially, I don't know, has there been any dialogue with them about what they want to do and whether they are interested in doing transitional or assisted living or anything
No.
like that?
Well, Joe, unless you've heard from them since our last
No.
meeting. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
But it would
actually,
seem-
my hope is they would become invested in the process once developers start reaching out to them to purchase a piece of the
Right.
property.
Yeah.
Until
Well-
then, I can't see a.
So-
So then having said that, then I think it makes more sense to treat 191, the yellow piece, as a separate entity, because our goal all along has been connectivity from the nursing home through to try to take some of the burden off of Foster Street. So we need a carrot in order to get there. So if we just rezone it along with the nursing home, they automatically get it. But if we leave it as it's standalone, they're going to have to do something about connectivity then if they want to develop it. And that would be the impetus for them to talk about a throughway road so that you could come in further down Foster Street and keep some of the traffic off of Foster Street.
Would we have to go to the town, go back to the town to get that area rezoned as 40R?
Yes, and you wouldn't get any incentive payments for it if we don't do it now. I would push back a little bit on what Mark's just said, but who knows how the conversation would go. I would recommend we rezone it now, and then the developers can work with the nursing home on a second egress.
No, I'm agreeing that we rezone it now, but I'm just agreeing we
Okay, I
stop right there, but we don't do the nursing home part of it itself. We do the yellow square that you've drawn, just that part of it. Leave the nursing home, which is further over to your map doesn't go far enough over. If you could slide the map, can you slide the map
Oh,
over?
okay. I see what you're saying. All right.
So
I say
everything uphill from the yellow is owned by the nursing home. Is that correct?
Yes, I think
Okay.
Ron can open up her map a little bigger. I'm
Well,
saying
yeah,
we just do the yellow part.
Right.
Include that, and that gives them incentive of a throughway connection if they want to rezone this and put some sort of assisted living, independent living, something else. They have to figure a way to get through there.
Because they would need access to the back of that property and they couldn't do it. Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
So Maren, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I'm on board with
Okay.
either way on that. We just got, Mark Rassicott just had a good conversation with Bill Rayalt at DHCD, and there is a way to consider the whole parcel, including the nursing home. And I think Mark was explaining that you call that part of the part with the nursing home and the septic system as, what was the word again?
The existing nursing home, the grounds, the parking area, et cetera, would be called substantially developed land for purposes of the application. It would still be in the district.
Mhm.
And you would still need to designate what future type of development you'd like to see there if the nursing home ever went away. So you could say, well, that's abutting some residential areas, so we'd like that to be the medium density, 12 units per acre townhome or single family kind of thing. And that way it's covered by the zoning. As Mr. Montanari says, you can get your access through there as part of the development. If it ever went away, it could be developed and you would get the density incentive payments at that point for it. The only thing you won't get, and it's reasonable, you wouldn't get the zoning incentive payments for it because that area is already developed. You'd get the zoning incentive payments for all of the potential development elsewhere on that parcel, other than the probably 6 or 7 acres that the nursing home sits on.
Are we discussing this all being medium then? Or it's yellow, right? So it's a done deal. No, I know.
No, we're seeking direction from you guys.
Yeah, no, I'm asking the rest of the board. Are we saying, oh, there's enough, low density housing in Littleton already? Let's just do stuff that's medium or high?
Yes, that's what you.
Well, but also remember that low is 8 units per acre,
which
that's
is 8 times,
much higher
that's
than
right.
what. So it's not our definition of low. It's maybe Quincy's definition of low. But for us, it's still a high density. And also, 8 units per acre. Right now, we don't have sewer. That's still going to be an engineering hurdle that just for even that low density. In some ways, I think having a 3-tier housing option gives a good variety, maybe allows for in the low a little bit more green space and open space and separation that really allows you to sort of transition from that higher density. But, again, us using the term low, it's still higher than any other by right, zoning district within Littleton.
And if you look,
Frankly, I've avoided using the word low density because, it's not true for us.
Except at town meeting, we should definitely use low density at town meeting.
Yes.
I think you got to keep it low, quote unquote low, because if you look at the lots that are there, 9-2, 9-3, 9-4, all off at Gillian Way are going to be right there. You don't want to put high rises right there. That's the area we're talking about. Low, I think low is even still too high a density back there, but I think we need to put something back there and give the Life Care the incentive to want to connect, play ball with us and connect through. So I'm all for putting something out there.
Makes sense.
Great.
See, because now take a look at the map. See the little red roadway going into Life Care?
Mm-hmm.
In order for them to do anything to the left of that blue bubble, they got to have a second way out of there. Mm-hmm. So they're going to have to make some sort of commitment to connectivity in order to develop that piece over there. Because you can't go another 750 feet off of that. You're already way past 750 feet. So it makes sense to force them to make a loop for us to take some of the traffic off of Foster Street and loop around and come back down where the train station is.
Yeah.
And that would probably be the best and easiest, quickest way to convince them that that's a good idea.
We could be super cute and utilize the starter home provision for 40R for that area closer to Life Care. That's 4 units per acre. And then where we have the townhomes, have that as sort of like a senior higher level. You know, there's different options. The starter home, I would be hoping at some point maybe to talk to Marn and then the planning board looking at that as another tool for housing options, sort of swinging the opposite direction from our sort of focus towards seniors. But, you know, if we're looking for a variety, that's also within the 40R toolkit that we'd be able to use.
Okay.
It strikes me that if we're going to put the lowest density, we might want to put it next to the Foster Street lots, because those are the people that are going to be not enthusiastic about it at town meeting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not sure the Life Care Center is going to care on that border between their land and the lot that we're talking about doing high density, whether that's 4 or 8 per acre. I'm not sure that they're particularly going to care, but I know Ted Doucette's going to care.
Marn, did you have that site plan again? Just because that showed the wetlands really well.
Actually, this is Lily Perkinside, also from MAPC. I had a question about the wetlands, which is that Alyssa, who's on the call, noticed a kind of discrepancy between the wetlands that we're seeing mapped here and the wetlands that were shown on that plan. I think this, the kind of green strip that's in the center of that parcel corresponds to wetlands, and the plan had a much larger wetlands area. And so I wanted to, I guess, as we go back to the site plan, I'd love to hear a little bit more about that. If we're going to incorporate the larger wetlands into the map of environmentally constrained lands, we'll probably need I guess we would definitely need a spatial file to support that designation as opposed to this designation.
Okay, well,
Sorry to interrupt.
Yep, I think I get the question. Thank you. The wetlands line shown on this on the base map to this was done through a delineation. So on the ground field work, and I included the 50-foot buffer because the Littleton Conservation Commission has a 50-foot quote no build area, so that the only thing that's encroaching on that is the part of the roadway, main roadway in. So then when we go back to this, yeah, that's the best guesstimate from the from Mass GIS, which doesn't include any on the ground work.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Okay. So, Mark, are we good with that first question?
I'm not 100% clear, but I think that what I have heard is that you would like to see the 43-acre Life Care property entirely included in the 40R district. I am a little unclear on which density you would like. I think it is the 8 units per acre, but I'm not sure. And I'm not sure that that includes the entire property, or if the far western side might be able to be included in a higher density. I'm not sure that I've heard that yet.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So if we include the entire 191 Foster, we would have to take out the, an area around the building itself, and then the area around the septic system that runs down this way, correct?
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay,
And then the remainder would be in the quote unquote developable land category. So that would be, behind the lots on Harwood and behind the lots on Julian Way.
Mhm. Okay.
And then over by 495.
Okay, yeah, and so what we have proposed now is a 50-foot, no structure, no parking buffer between existing residential property lines and new development. So that would just be 50 feet around here and then around there. It could include roadways, it could include landscaping, it could include drainage basins, just no structures.
That's actually a separate question that I wanted to get to, but since we've gotten to it, let me ask. As currently written, the bylaw does not allow for the main entrance roads to be within that 50-foot buffer. It allows for emergency access roads, but does not allow for main entrance roads. And that was one of the things that I thought needed to change, because the existing entrance to Life Care is certainly within the 50-foot buffer. And as initially drawn for the 245 Foster Street concept plan, that came in right across the street from the subdivision road across the street. Thank you, Maren.
Right.
Came in right there, so that you had a full-way intersection, safer than sort of an offset intersection. And that would also be within a 50-foot buffer as it was drawn. So
yeah, and I was glad that you picked up on that. In Littleton zoning, we're used to buffers and setbacks being for parking in buildings, not for roadways and landscaping and other items. So I would recommend we update I've actually done some wording to update the bylaw if I get the policy direction to do that. So Mark, do you understand where I'm coming from?
Oh, yeah. Yep. I'm fine. I'm waiting for the Littleton Station Advisory Committee to say yes.
That's fine with that's fine with us. I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah, me neither.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Okay. So then we just need to get back to the question of what subzones, if any, you want to see on the 191 Foster Street parcel, and what density you'd like in that parcel and in the subzones if you so choose to put them.
So here's my understanding. We have the zones that Maren laid out, the high and medium, which were the blue crosshatched and the yellow crosshatched, and the solid yellow would be low.
Okay, so the solid yellow would be the 8 units per acre.
But yeah, that's just me.
Yeah. Just a question, because I don't know if we had finished the last thing as far as the whole Life Care. And let me just throw this out, Mark. So if we include the whole Life Care Center, the zoning incentive payment would be based on that parcel size that's developable minus the area that's considered previous development.
That's my understanding from talking with Bill this afternoon.
If Life Care holds on to the facility and it's like, you know what, we're just good for 20 years, I would expect for 19 of those 20, because we'd get a buy on the first year, we're going to be getting letters from DHCD saying, what's the status of development on the Life Care parcel? Have you taken any efforts to develop it? Potentially being told that you may have to pay back that portion because it's not happened. And I say this out of direct experience for a 40R in Grafton, where it was approved in 2007. And up until I left in early 2000, on an annual basis, I'm saying, yes, we're still working on it. Yes, there's interest, but it's slow. And responding to letters that say, if we don't have a response by June 30th, you have to pay back $300,000. So I just say that as somewhat of a reminder that, or to let people know that by entering into the 40R, there is a level of commitment that the town is making to develop under the 40R. And that's where DHCD providing the incentive payments sort of, it's the carrot and the stick. Stick being you have to pay it back if you decide to develop it not under the 40R. One of the benefits as far as that plan that Mara had was that we can always separate out those funds that are associated with, say, that yellow area in case Life Care does not play along. It's more likely that Life Care could say, you know what, we'll sell you off a piece of property rather than develop the whole thing. And that may be easier. We can always extend the district, but looking at those parcels on Harwood and just how we're extending sort of the abutters, we could start to raise comments from people saying, but that's not where the station is. Station's way down the hill. And we could just be getting a wider sort of view from, say, some of the butters expressing concerns about development compared to if we just sort of kept it closer to the station, sort of like in line with the plan that Marin had.
I agree with Joe. I think we need to keep it delineated. And he brings up a very good point. Maybe they don't want to do something. Maybe when the Longs or whoever end up developing it, want to work out a deal with them to keep that yellow square and develop it as part of this would make the most sense. So I think I agree. Leave that.
And the senior housing, that's a really good bylaw to use. And we can require through the 40R process that they allow for extension of a road to connect in at some point. So, it would be a great way to sort of pair together a bunch of different tools that Littleton adopts for that whole area.
Yeah,
so,
I agree. What's the rest of the board think? We have to give some sort of direction. So do you guys agree with that? Leave that little buffer, that yellow buffer between the Life Care and 245 Foster Street and have it be the only part that's going to be considered developed. We'll leave Life Care the way it is. That's what we're talking about, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it makes more sense. Why don't you do it that way, Mark? And then once it gets to the planning board, then we can discuss it further there. But it makes a lot more sense to do it that way.
Yeah, I agree.
That simplifies the application process as well because we're dealing with entirely vacant lands. Okay.
Great, thank you.
Okay. So we dealt with the sub-districts. We dealt with the buffer.
So I'm sorry to interrupt, Mark. I've got to jump off. So Matthew, I'm turning it over to you.
Oh yeah, and make Matthew in charge. Thanks a lot.
Well, he's the vice chair or co-chair or whatever it's called. So yeah. Hey, it's coming to you next week, All right.
Okay.
Bye, everyone.
Big
Bye.
cheese. Thank you, Delisa.
Okay.
Go ahead, Matthew, you're up.
Let's, what's your next question, Mark?
Okay. Looking through this list, I had a conversation with Bill Rail this afternoon about the question of assisted living, whether you wanted to include that in the, if you wanted to include that in the allowed uses, whether or not that would complicate things. He indicated that it could be an allowed use, but that he's never seen it really be successful because assisted living that would be developed under a 40R would have to have a 20% affordability component, and it makes it kind of financially infeasible. The only time that this was done was in the town of Sharon, where the assisted living facility was actually developed under the underlying zoning, even though it was in a 40R district, because they could do it on the underlying zoning without the 20% affordability component. And it sounds like, from what Maren was describing earlier, you could do that also in your senior residential bylaw. So I guess I would recommend that you maybe not include it in your 40R bylaw as an allowed use.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Okay. All right, and let me move on. We will need to have the mixed use section defined as a separate section, in the mapping and also in the bylaw, because I'm assuming that's the only spot that you're going to want banks, restaurants, offices, etc., is in that district.
Yeah, actually, Joe had a different way, recommended it or suggested a different way of approaching that. If we say that the banks and the restaurants and retail use have to be within 300 feet of Foster Street, then that only allows them up at the front, rather than having yet another sub-district. Do you have
That wetland provides a great buffer. We can just shoot for that essentially delineates the front from the back.
I have no problem with that. That's an eloquent way of doing it.
Way to go, Joe.
Okay. You have in the existing bylaw a placeholder for a cap on the number of residential units. Wanted to know what you wanted to do with that. That's something that would need to be dealt with in the application as well.
I'm wondering if once we get an initial calculation from you, at least that gives us an idea of what the possibilities are. If it's a number that seems way too high for Littleton, then the planning board would have the opportunity to ratchet that back a little bit, unless there's a number you want to plug in now.
The only issue that may arise, Maren, is when we are doing the calculations, we have to take the calculations are really for purposes of the zoning incentive payment. And in order to do that, we are required to take out steep slopes, required to take out the wetlands, etc. So it sounds like, okay, maybe we have a 40-acre parcel and we get 20 acres in the zoning district, or the sub-district for multifamily, but the 20 acres in that sub-district has a third of it. Let's say 12 acres of that is on a steep slope. So we would be calculating X number of units. A developer coming in, however, could conceivably build on that space. It's just more expensive to build on the steep slopes. So you may wind up with more units, because if you've got 20 acres and it's 20 units per acre, that's 400 units potential. Even if we take the wetlands out and the steep slopes out for calculating the zoning incentive payments, if you have it zoned for 20 units an acre, there could still possibly be the 400 units there.
So at least in this discussion, this is where, it's really great to be able to have MAPC help with mapping to be able to, and maybe that plan doesn't need to be digitized. Maybe it's available in electronic format just to enter in the wetland delineation, but then also, look at those areas slopes. And once we know sort of what that area was, we could then identify, a reasonable approximation as far as what would be that the total based on where we want to have those 3 districts. I had found that DHCD, when they do their math to identify the number of say qualifying units, was lower than what my mental math was. And that working with Bill, we actually had to put in a floor and then we put in a ceiling. So we basically say DHCD came back and said, you know, we're only going to recognize about 201 units. That's actually what they told us in Grafton. We then put on a floor because the minimum density is 20. You can still have a developer propose 30 units per acre. So you want to have a floor and a ceiling and use that floor that the HCD would say, here's the minimum amount that we'd recognize as your floor.
Right. So again, if it was a 20-acre parcel and just say half of it was wetlands and steep slopes, that would leave 10 acres. That's 200 units that, in theory, if you just wanted to build the density on the upland, you could have, 200 units on the 20 acres of upland, and therefore you may want to set a cap, an upper end at 200 or 250 units, so that you get the density that you're looking for. So I guess our next step, Lily and Alyssa, would be to come up with the mapping of the developable land so that the town can then determine what they want to see for a density on the areas that are being designated.
Yes, certainly.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think we've been holding on finishing that up until we had sub-districts relatively confirmed, so we can go ahead and do that later this week and then send it over to
Great.
get the full picture.
One more piece. If you remember correctly, when we were speaking with the Longs and we were talking about the slopes, and the slopes were advantageous for 2 reasons. One of it's going to be further away down by the roadway so that we could hide the heights of the buildings that way, because the topography is going to actually help us with that. And the other one is that the Longs had expressed an interest in actually putting parking underneath the units. So they want to hire buildings out there. So I don't think you want to skimp on what the density will be in that, only to give them as much incentive to go higher and capture both those things that we're looking for back there. I mean, I think we'd all think it'd be great if you could get rid of some of these on-site parking and put it actually in the building, if it's in their best interest to do it that way. I think we want to reward them however we can if they're looking towards that goal. So the higher density is what we should be looking for on with the topography playing into our favor rather than against us.
Yeah, and the only thing I'll add on that is that the Littleton's definition of building height really plays into that well, because it's the height of the building is not the maximum height from ground level, it's the average height from ground level. So if you've got a higher elevation on one side than the other, it does allow the building to be taller based on our current definitions.
Good.
Okay. Another question, and this is really for the town to figure out how you want to deal with the bylaw. It's less related to the mapping and the application, but you have a section 173-233 of the proposed 40R bylaw says that it basically, to me, as I read it, it releases the 40R from the requirements of a special permit under the aquifer protection provisions of the zoning bylaw, because it releases the developer from all other provisions of the zoning bylaw except what's in the 40R. So there needs to be, well, if you want them to be subject to the provisions of the Aquifer Protection bylaw, the Water Resources Protection District limitation, then you need to have something in the bylaw about that. It's just, it's not there now. Maren, do you want to, you can probably explain it better.
No, and thank you for bringing that up. After my initial reaction was, yes, of course, we should have them go with the Water Resource District bylaw, but the main planning goal for that is deals with sewage. So if there's the sewage treatment plant there, then this, then it's not the big concern. So then the second reason to do that is stormwater. So if we would rather, I'm at the point of recommending that we require the development to meet the stormwater bylaw and leave it at that.
And is the stormwater bylaw part of the zoning, or is it a separate town bylaw?
You would ask. I'll have to check.
Because if it's in the zoning,
I think it's
then
half and half. Yeah.
you have to figure out how to do that. But then if it's a separate town bylaw, I think you're okay.
Okay. Yeah, I hear you. But again, it's up to the committee to provide some policy direction on that.
Well, I actually think it's probably going to be more the planning board once it gets before us more, and then we'll have to weigh in on those kind of things. Because by the time we get further along in the process, it'll be in front of us, correct?
Correct.
So yeah, I think we'll probably weigh in.
Okay.
Okay.
So we'll leave it as it is for the moment and flag it for
The board's
discussion.
concerned,
Yeah.
All right. But we're not going to worry about the septic because of the sewage treatment plant that will be there.
Mhm.
Okay. Lily, I have talked enough, and this is getting to the section of the document that is are your questions. Did we answer your questions by the first part, or are there more?
I think our leading question was on sub-districts. So I think we're probably all set, but let me just, I stupidly do not have that document pulled up. So Mark, I will just quickly pull it up right now and just do a quick double check.
And I know the main issue was the sub-districts and the density within the sub-districts. I know that there was a question about the adjacent area, but now that we're cutting off the northern part of the 191, I think that everything is going to be within the half mile. We have to worry about that. The wetlands you talked about, and Maren's going to try and get you the detail of where the actual flagged wetlands are, because those are always bigger than the GIS wetlands.
Yeah, I think that hits on it. Our other question I remember was about existing occupied units, and with the exclusion of the life care facility, I think that's also no longer relevant. So I think today our work got a little bit easier just through the decision. So
okay, and the dedicated open space question, we'll have to investigate a little bit. I don't think we have to include, well, would it be to our advantage to include the buffers in a dedicated open space? They're not really dedicated open space. They're just a buffer. So I don't think we would do that.
Yeah, I think one thing that we'll need to follow up with internally and then potentially reach out to the group is the designation of internal roadways, which came up a little bit today. I believe that is an area that we could potentially exclude in the density data spreadsheet associated with the application, but I need to refresh myself on those requirements. But that's I would say something new that's opened up in the conversation today that we can follow up on.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we're excited to kind of get mapping and start to pull the kind of results from the conversation today into a spreadsheet where we can actually look at unit yields.
Okay. The only other thing that I'll bring up then is that time is of the essence. I know that you're kind of all aware of this, but because you've got to warrant that will close for the town meeting, but DHCD usually asks for submittal of materials under 40R 90 days before town meeting. I'm assuming town meeting is early May.
Yeah, I think it's the 9th.
Yeah, so today being February 9th, I think we're right at 90 days today. So Bill said that, they're going to, if assuming that they don't get swamped with a lot of 40R applications, he's not too worried about the 90 days. But we should try to get him materials as soon as possible. And if there are sections that can go to him now for review, that would be good. So for instance, if you have which I think you do, you've got design guidelines that came from a consultant that would be associated with this 40R district. It would be great to get those to Bill like right away so he can start reviewing those and say, yeah, these are fine. I don't have to worry about these, so that it's not something that he's looking at in April and he's worried about in April.
Yep, and I've had enough direction now to update the draft 40R bylaw, the 2 articles there. So I could update that and then send that as a draft.
Yeah, I think he'd be glad to look at drafts as you're developing them, because I mean he's thrilled to have this move ahead, and he's going to do whatever he can to help you along.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's great. Sooner rather than later.
Yep.
Okay, I think our questions are answered.
Great.
We can get going on working on this for you.
Thank you. And is there another agenda item, Maren?
It's a very good question.
I don't think so. Next steps, I think, was the last one.
Yes.
So
next,
I guess one question is this committee going to meet again, or are we handing it off to the planning board now? Do we need, I mean, what is there significant enough changes that we need to meet and approve them? I don't feel that way, but I'm curious what the rest of you think.
I think we've gone as the committee's gone as far as we can go now.
Yeah.
We're under the gun to try to get it for Springtown meeting. Planning board's going to hold a meeting every month on it, at least one. And you're more than welcome to stay in on it, but I think the forum's going to switch over to the planning board, the formal procedure that we have to go moving forward to get this town meeting.
I think that makes a lot of sense, especially given the time pressure. So,
Especially considering it's only me and you, Matthew.
yeah, right.
Right. We're the last ones on the sinking ship, I guess.
The rats, I guess.
Yeah.
there you go.
So does everyone, so the next steps, does everyone know what they're doing next?
I think we do, actually. I think Mark's going to fine tune everything, going to get it over to Maren. We're on for March 4th,
18th.
right? Or March 18th, is that?
Well, but hang on, we're February still. We're on February 18th. So next Thursday, planning board will discuss again. Just if.
Okay. Yeah.
Depending on, yeah.
And you guys should probably, like it if you were still, a participant of it on the 18th, obviously. Matthew and, at least we'll be on the board, and maybe if Chuck gets some time. And we'll just start moving forward with it.
Sounds great.
But I think it does make sense to start getting as much as we can to the state earlier rather than later, just so that they get a look at it.
Very good.
And
All right.
we will get materials to you as soon as we can.
That'll be great, Mark. Your team's doing a great job, by the way. Thank you. And Myron, too, by the way. We'll be lost about Myron.
She always does a great job.
Lily and Alyssa are actually going to be taking the majority of the effort here because they're doing all the mapping work and providing all the data. So I'm just the person that knows you guys. You know me.
You're a figurehead.
Yeah.
I notice everyone's working from home today with a little snow bothered you guys. I had my hat on because I was out in the snow working, or
There
driving
you go.
on the
There you
side.
go.
All right.
They said that I had to, okay, thanks. Thank you, Mark. Thank you,
Yeah.
Melissa. and
Thank you
Lily.
all.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Mark.
it.
Thank you,
Bye.
Lisa, Matthew, Joe. Thank you all.
Yep.
So, all right, so we're good.
Yep.
We have a
Good.
6:30 Affordable Housing Trust too. Thanks.
Yes, we do.
It's my 4th meeting in 2 days. So good
Mm.
times.
I know the feeling.
Yeah, I bet you do, especially when the select board went to like 10:30 last night. So motion to adjourn, Mark. I guess there's only 2 of us, right?
I'll second it. All those in favor? Aye.
All right. Thank you
Joe.
all.
Right.
See you later.
Bye.
Here.
See ya.
Bye.
All right, see you in a couple hours, Myron. Thanks.
Yep.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.